everyone. As we all know, this weekend is Easter weekend, and we want to remember what Jesus did for us. So, every day this weekend, my sister and I are going to be sharing with you a story of each day. Exactly what happened on each day. Okay, so tonight quite a lot of things happened. First, it started off with the plot to kill Jesus. And now it came to pass, when Jesus had finished all these sayings, that he had said to his disciples, "You know that after 2 days is the Passover, and the Son of Man will be delivered up to be crucified." Then the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders of the people assembled at the palace of the high priest, and plotted to take Jesus by trickery and kill him. But they said, "Not during the feast, lest there be an uproar amongst the people." And when Jesus was in Bethany at the house of Simon the leper, a woman came to him, carrying a very costly, fragrant oil, and she poured it on his head as he sat at the table. But when his disciples saw it, they were indignant, saying, "Why this waste? For this fragrant oil might have been sold for much and given to the poor." But when Jesus was aware of it, he said to them, "Why do you trouble this woman? For she has done good work for me. For you have the poor with you always, but me you do not have always. For in pouring this fragrant oil on my body, she did it for my burial. Assuredly I say to you, wherever this gospel is preached in the whole world, what this woman has done will also be told as a memorial to her." Okay, and then
So that's the first.
that's the first part of the story. Oh goodness. And then we go to where Judas agrees to betray Jesus. Judas is one of Jesus' disciples.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay. So it's called 30 Pieces of Silver.
It was nearly time for the feast of the Passover. As the disciples bought food at the market, Judas Iscariot crept quietly away to see the chief priests. Sneaky. Evil had entered his heart, and he no longer believed that Jesus was from God. When Judas told the priests why he had come to see them, they were very happy, because beforehand they were plotting to kill him. "How much would you pay me to give Jesus over to you quietly?" Judas asked the priests. The priests counted out 30 pieces of silver and gave them to Judas. "I'll take you to him when he is alone, so that there is little trouble," Judas promised. And from then on, he started to look for the right moment to betray Jesus. So that's pretty scary, hey? A guy who has followed Jesus basically his whole adult life hardens his heart and turns against him because evil entered into his heart. He doesn't believe that Jesus comes from God anymore. Okay. Now it's the Last Supper, or otherwise known as the Passover. Okay. On the day before the Passover, Jesus told Peter and John to prepare for the meal. "But where shall we eat?" they asked him. "As you enter Jerusalem," replied Jesus, "you will meet a man carrying a water jar. He will take you to a house with an upstairs room. Prepare everything there for us." Sure, it's so amazing how Jesus just
Yeah.
Okay. That evening before the meal, Jesus knew that the disciples had been quarreling about which of them was the best. Sounds a lot like us. So Jesus calmly took a basin of water and began to wash their feet. Peter was shocked. "I can't let you wash my feet," he said. Washing feet back in those days was a very, very humble gesture. "I want you to follow my example," said Jesus. "Whoever wants to be great in the kingdom of God must learn how to serve others as I am serving you." That's a lesson to all of us. We must take Jesus as our example. Then they sat down to eat. During the meal, Jesus said, "One of you is going to betray me, one who is eating with me now." Peter whispered to John, "Ask him who it is." And John did. Jesus replied, "The one who I give this bread to," and he gave them each a piece of bread dipped in herbs. So still they did not know. But later John remembered that Jesus gave the first piece to Judas and had said, "Go and do what you have to do." Wow.
None of the others realized at the time what this had meant. The disciples thought that Jesus was telling Judas, who looked after their money, to go and buy more food. They saw Judas leave the room and knew it was night. There's Judas leaving the room all sneakily. Oh, there he is. Okay, so that was the Passover supper. Oh, it's not done yet. Then Jesus promised the disciples that God's Spirit would always be with them and not to be afraid. He knew that this would be the last meal he shared with them. He took a piece of bread, thanked God for it, and broke it into pieces. "This is my body," he said. "Like this bread, I will be broken. I will die for you. Do this in remembrance of me." Then he lifted a cup of wine, thanked God again, and passed it round. "This is my blood," he said. "It will be spilled for many people. Drink it in remembrance of me. We shall not drink it together again until we are in God's kingdom." Okay, so that's the Passover supper. After this, he goes into the Garden of Gethsemane.
So that's the next story. So after the meal, Jesus climbed up the Mount of Olives with his friends until they came to the Garden of Gethsemane. As they walked, Jesus spoke to them. "This very night you will all run away and leave me." "I would never do that," protested Peter. "Before the cock crows," said Jesus, "you will say 3 times that you do not know me." "Even if I have to die, I will never say that," cried Peter. The other disciples agreed. At Gethsemane, Jesus took Peter, James, and John with him, leaving the rest to wait outside. "My heart is full of sadness," said Jesus. "I must go and pray. Stay here and keep watch." He went a little further and knelt to pray. "Father," Jesus prayed, "if it is possible, save me from this death, but only if it is your will."
Note how Jesus always puts God's will first before his own.
Yeah. Then he went back to Peter, James, and John and found them fast asleep. He woke them up and asked them again to keep watch. This time, Jesus went deeper into the orchard to pray.
Go away!
Twice more he came back to the 3 disciples, only to find them asleep again. As he woke them for the 3rd time, Jesus heard the sound of voices and saw the light of torches coming near. The temple guards and the chief priests were heading towards Jesus. They had come to arrest him. Judas was leading them.
And now all the disciples can see that Judas was the one to betray Jesus.
"The man you want is the man I kiss," said Judas to the guards. He walked over to Jesus and kissed him on the cheek. The guards quickly closed round Jesus, but he did not resist. Peter drew his sword and cut off the ear of the chief priest's servant. "That's enough," said Jesus, and he reached out and healed the man's ear. Then he turned to the priests and guards. "Why have you come armed with swords? As if I were a criminal," he asked. But the priests and guards marched him off into the night without a word. Then all of Jesus' friends ran away, just as Jesus said they would.